Welcome to Almost Paradise Gardens. Today is the last day of March, March 31st, and I'm going to be talking about what you should have probably done back in December and January, but the effects of pruning on your garden. At this point in time, it's too late to really do any serious pruning. Everything is starting to leaf out and starting to bloom, so even though we don't really feel like we've got seasons the way that a lot of people up north, where the leaves all lose their leaves and things get really cold and icy and snowy and things go seriously dormant, we do have the seasons, and they pretty much correspond to the seasons that I was used to back in the United States. I live in Jalisco, Mexico, in the Central Highlands. There is distinct seasons here. They are not as pronounced. When things go dormant here is usually the cold weather, and December and January are the coldest months here. It's also a very dry time of year here. Very, very different from up north, where the winters are cold, snowy, icy, very wet. Our summers are what's wet here. So that's why gardening here is a little tricky. When rains start, then we can start having problems with other things that are related to moisture. There's fungal growth, mealybugs, rot of many types, root rot, etc., if you don't have good drainage. But this time of year is spring, and it's very, very dry. The next 2 months are our hottest, driest months, up at least to the mid-90s. We rarely have any rain at all the next 2 months. So watering is imperative. But I wanted to show you what the results of my pruning were this year. I don't prune everything, but in a lot of things I do prune very severely, and it just brings on a huge new flush of growth in spring. So it's important, I think, to prune. Some people don't prune at all here, or prune very little. They prune just whenever it's needed. It puts a lot of stress on your plants if you prune at the wrong time of year. I tend to like to prune when things are at their dormant season, similar to what it is in the northern parts of the world. Only a few things go really dormant here and die completely back. Not too many things do. That things stop blooming a little bit and the growth stops growing, but we really don't have the long, harsh, cold, barren trees, that sort of thing. It just never really happens here. So you have to be tuned into what's happening. But here at this particular location, and if you live in another part of the world that is subtropical, you need to pay attention to when your dormant season is and do your pruning then. And like I say, I prune pretty severely, and I'm going to show you some of the things that I prune here and some of the growth that has come back since. So far, everything has come back, and really has come back with huge, robust growth and new blooms.
Roses do really well here, despite the fact that we have rather warm, moist summers. They do appreciate getting cut back. If you look in these pictures, this is before pruning in January. There's a lot of kind of dead, disease-looking leaves. This shows after pruning, I get rid of all crossing and dead branches. I get rid of every single leaf and just cut down to a few main branches. This shows the new growth in this month in March and the first few blooms. They don't look great right now, but they will be getting better. I also cut back my butterfly bush very hard. This is what it looked like before, just very big, gangly branches spewing out all over the place. And so I cut it way back to just the bare bones. I really love canna, but by the end of the year, they tend to start developing this red spots of some sort of rust or virus or something on the leaves, and they look very unhealthy. So I cut them all the way down to the ground, and within a couple of weeks, they usually burst back up with new growth. I'm a real newbie when it comes to bananas, and I was just so excited when my banana tree burst out in bloom and started forming these bunches of bananas. And I watched a few YouTubes, and the tree actually dies once it's born its fruit, and it starts keeling over. So I shored it up with a board and tried to keep it going for a while, but there was a point where it just was listing so badly, I decided I would cut the bunch off and let it ripen off the tree and cut the tree all the way off to the ground. Cutting the tree down was really easy with just a plain little pruning saw. This is what the stump looked like at the end. So sadly, the bananas went from green to rotted, and they are now compost. So lesson learned, I have to just keep that tree going as long as I can and let the bananas ripen. It takes absolutely forever for them to start turning yellow. It's really astonishing to me that you can just stick coleus in the ground here and it grows like crazy. But the end of the year, it's a good time to just hack it back. The stems can get very big and woody, and at a certain point you have to just sort of give up, dig them up, and when you're pruning them back, it's a good thing to just stick a few in a jar of water and get them rooted. And then when the stems get too big and woody of the old plants, you can dig those up and put new starts in. But they add a whole lot of beautiful color to the garden. Hibiscus lends such a beautiful tropical feel to a garden, and the bushes can grow to be quite large. It's supposed to bloom on the tips of new growth on the branches. I have never pruned mine, and they are quite bushy, but I believe I'll probably do some shaping of them next dormant season and get them pruned up and getting them branching a little bit more. But they have been blooming quite well despite the fact that I haven't cut them back at all. When dealing with fruiting plants, it's important to understand whether they fruit on old wood or new wood, and I found out that passion fruit vines really bear fruit on new growth. This vine is just really a constant battle for me. I'm been hacking it back all the time, and it just keeps, it's like the little shop of horrors. It just keeps growing and taking over this workshop. So anyway, I decided to be quite brutal, and I cut it all the way back to the main stem with just a few of the stems left. It was so well established, and quite honestly, I don't think I even got one fruit off of it last year. So I was hoping that with this new growth, I would get some fruit this year. And I thought I might have killed it because it took almost a month before it started showing any shoots. But it was such a well-established plant, I really didn't think I had killed it. But it just took a long time for it to start showing signs of life. But now that it's starting to grow, stand back because I think it's going to go crazy again. I have quite a few salvias. They add such a beautiful spots of color, but their branching habit is a little bit ungainly. So it was time to cut those back as well. I cut them back quite hard, and they have come back with a vengeance. And boy, let me tell you, the hummingbirds and the bees and the pollinators just love salvia. My Buddhist lamp tree had a very awkward habit of branching, and I took a cue looking at the Buddhist lamp that are growing at the Lake Chapala Society. They actually had trained them to have a kind of a Y-shaped main trunks, rather than being more like a shrub. So that's what I'm doing with mine. And so I cut it back quite severely, along with so many other things, and it looked very ugly in the yard for a long time, bare branches. But it soon started signs of new growth, and now it's gall leafed out and starting to bloom again. Crotons are very, very common plants around here, and they can grow quite large and do well in pots. Mine is still in a pot. I cut it back severely this year because it was getting kind of gangly, just a few main stems. So I cut it back, and it's branched out quite nicely, but unfortunately I'm not getting much color. It gets a lot of direct afternoon sun, but I am just now moving it so it will get morning sun and maybe we'll get more of the reds. It's down to kind of green and just a little bit of yellow at this point. From what I've read, they do like a lot of bright light, but not direct hot sun during the middle of the day. So I'm going to try this morning light, and apparently you have to just sort of play around and see what brings the colors out in your particular plant. This is my strawberry guava tree. Sorry for the lens flare, it was late afternoon. I cut it back quite severely also after it fruited last year. The fruits last year were very small, about the size of a cranberry, and I wanted to cut it back so it was away from the wall there, so in case my cats decided they wanted to climb the tree and get over the wall, they couldn't do that. But unfortunately, I have a new kitten, and he does it anyway. He figured it out. But I have to say, this year the fruits were quite large. They were about the size of a quarter this year. And so that was quite surprising, and I was very happy. There were fewer fruits, but they were very large, which makes it a whole lot easier for picking. The fruits aren't really fabulous because they've got really hard little rock-like seeds inside. So what I do is I blend it up and make agua fresca out of it. Just blend it up and put the pulp in some water, and then the seeds sink to the bottom, and it's delicious that way. I didn't do anything to my heliconia this year. I planted it last year and it didn't bloom. It's just been getting established. But this year it's going crazy. Almost every single stalk has a bloom coming out of it, and I just adore these blossoms. They look so tropical to me. I just love having a tropical feel to the garden. The plumeria tree doesn't really have a serious dormant season here. It does stop blooming for a while, and it's started blooming again now. But I don't bother paying attention to pruning any particular time of year. When it's in my way, I just hack a chunk off. But quite frankly, my pets end up breaking off pieces. It's extremely brittle. It's kind of a funny tree. It stores a heck of a lot of water in its trunk, and so it's quite drought tolerant. But when it breaks, it leaks this white sap for quite a while. And if you callus that over for a couple of days, you can stick a branch into the ground and remove most of the leaves, and it will root and become a new plumeria tree for you. But anyway, it sends out new growth from nearby wherever the cut or break was. You can see little knobs coming out, and it will probably send out new branches. It doesn't have a real graceful growth habit, so I tend to get rid of branches that are going off in a direction I don't want. All of my citrus are really quite young, and so at this point I'm still just pruning to shape the trees. I want to allow them to grow to a fairly good size so I can reach up and pick the fruits at the top, but then I will keep the branches down to a manageable height. I want some shade, so I will let them grow up some. And what's interesting with them is they do fruit on new wood. And I just go through, and when something starts growing in a direction I don't like, I will cut that back and to a node that is aiming in the direction that I want it to go. and it very quickly sends out new growth. So with citrus, it's really interesting that almost as soon as you cut, very soon after that, it will send out new growth and it'll start fruiting on the new wood. Pay attention to where you're cutting, though. Make sure you're not cutting off any blooms because the blossoms will become new fruit for you.
I hope that was helpful. Just so don't be afraid of pruning. It's really, really helps your plants rejuvenate, gets rid of diseased plants, parts, dead parts of the plant, etc. Reshapes the plant when it's kind of gone growing in odd directions, or there's branches that are dead or crossing. It's pretty much pruning is the same for larger plants as it is anywhere. Dead crossing branches, etc., need to be taken out. Anyway, I hope that helped. Don't be afraid to prune. Go ahead. Next year when dormant season comes along, just go ahead and get those shears out and get that stuff out of there. And then when dormant season is over, it'll put out a new flush of growth. And I think you'll have a much healthier garden. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.